Okay, so moving on to the test framework side, we have already seen we were already using a JUnit, which is also a test framework, but that's mostly used on the development side, not on the testing side. So on the testing side, we have got something called TestNG, which is the next generation of the JUnit, right? So it is an enhanced version of the JUnit framework. It was built on top of JUnit. So it has got a lot of similar annotations, but it has got a lot of different other things which are not present in JUnit, and hence it is more suitable for the testing side. Okay. So as I said, it's a test framework which is similar to JUnit, but it has got additional functionalities, okay, which makes it more powerful and easy to use. So that's what is TestNG. Now, why TestNG and not JUnit? It has got more annotations compared to JUnit, right? You can group your tests in TestNG. You can perform a data-driven testing. You can use parameters. You can So TestNG provides a default reporting, right? So which is not present in Selenium or even JUnit. You can do parallel execution with multi-threading in TestNG, and you can also do some exceptional handling in TestNG separately, apart from the normal exceptional handling present in Java. Okay, so these are some of the advantages you can say which TestNG has over JUnit. Although JUnit is also introducing a lot of features, like you can also do parallel execution in JUnit, but still a lot of features which are present in TestNG is not provided in JUnit. So coming to the most important part of any test framework is annotations. Okay, so we have seen annotations like at before, at after, at test in JUnit, right? So through which we can organize our tests inside a framework, right? So similarly, TestNG has got annotations through which you can organize your tests. Okay, so there are number of different annotations, and some of them are listed here. Okay, so there is before suit, and this annotated method will run before all the tests in the particular suit which we are running. Okay, similarly, we have after suit. So this method will run after all the tests in the suit have run. We have before test. So this will run before any test method, okay, belonging to the class inside the test tag is run. Okay. Similarly, after test, it will run after the test methods belonging to the class where we have used this test tag. Then before groups, so if we have any particular groups which we have defined on our test cases, then this will run before those test cases of that particular group. Okay. And similarly, we have after groups, which will run after the test cases of that particular group. Then we have before class. So this will run before the test method in the current class. Okay. So whatever class we are using in that, if there is any test method, this method will run before that. And similarly, after class will run after that method in the current class. Then we have before method and after method. So this will run before each test method and after each test method. Okay, so wherever you use add test, right? So that becomes a test method. So it's similar in JUnit also. Okay, so that is add test. Then there are some advanced annotations like data provider, factory, listeners, and parameters. Okay, so parameters will allow you to pass parameters into your test methods. Data provider, you can pass complex parameters using data provider. Okay, factory and listeners, there are some different concepts which are present in TestNG. So listeners you can use for some reporting, advanced reporting purpose, and factory you can use for passing some or some methods which are regularly used, right? With the use of a factory. So these are some of the, I mean, almost all the annotations which are used in TestNG. As you can see, there are number of annotations which are additional when compared to the JUnit testing framework. So using this, we can basically control the flow of the execution of our test, and also we can organize our test in a better way inside the framework. Okay, so that's the importance of test annotations. So before we move forward, right, so let's see if we can create a TestNG, right? So let's create a new project. Okay, so the most important part of TestNG is the configuration file, right? So that is the testng.xml. Okay, so this XML file contains all the configuration required for your TestNG framework, from where you can control, you can start the execution, you can also control the execution of your all the test cases. So it's a specific format. Let me grab that. Okay, so this is how normal testng.xml file looks like. Okay, so there is a particular hierarchy of TestNG XML file, right? The hierarchy, what I mean is this TestNG suite, right? So that's on the top of the hierarchy. Then there is test, right? Then there is class, there would be methods, there would be groups, right? Inside the classes. So this is the hierarchy which follows, okay? So there will be opening tags with suite, test, and classes. Then there will be closing tags with classes, test, and suite. Okay. So I can name it regression, name it test suite. Okay, so class name would be whatever class you have created for your test methods. Okay, so if I create a class here, let me first create a package. Okay, so if I've created this class, so I can put the class name here. Right. Okay, yeah, the other thing is we need to add our TestNG dependency, right? So just a minute. And also let me get the other dependencies. Okay, so you need to pass the package as well for the class name. Otherwise, it will show it is not resolving. Okay, so this is how XML file testng.xml file looks like. You can, as I said, you can start your execution right from here, okay, from the XML file, or you can also start it from the test method as well. Now, similar to JUnit, you will see once you type at test, which is annotation, right? You will see there is org.testng.annotations. So if you're using both the frameworks, right, JUnit and TestNG, just make sure when you are writing these annotations, you might by mistakenly you might use the JUnit annotation instead of TestNG. So make sure you are importing the right package when you're working with both the frameworks together. Okay, so this is how you define your test method. So something like public void. Okay, like this. And then you can have also this, right? So before test, before suit, before class, before groups, okay, before method. If I do before test, that probably could be my setup where I will do my Selenium setup, and then after test. Okay, so before test means it will whatever test we have written, it will run all before run the script before all those tests, and after test means it will run after executing all the tests which are written in this particular class. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Now, we write the same thing on our TestNG framework. Okay, so this is how your tests would be structured in TestNG. Nothing different compared to JUnit, but some things have changed, like we are using before test instead of before, and after test instead of after. And then we have this configuration file which will drive our execution. Okay, so you can have multiple classes defined inside this, right? And it will execute the test methods inside each class one by one. Okay. Okay, let me check if we have got any TestNG plugin. Okay, so it is already bundled with, you can see it is already in the install tab. If you don't find it, then you can go to the marketplace and install it. Okay, so this is the official website of TestNG. Now coming to some other topics in TestNG, right? So there is a concept called groups through which you can group your tests into different categorizations. Okay, now it allows grouping of different test methods. Okay, a single group can contain other groups as well. Now when it is useful, say for example, in your regression or in your release, you don't want to run all your tests, right? You want to run specific test. So some test may be useful for doing a smoke test. Some may be doing a sanity test, or some test may be made for regression tests only, right? So in that case, you have three categorization of your test cases. So how do you categorize them, and how do you make sure that you are running only a specific set of test cases from all your other test cases, right? So that can be done using groups and TestNG. Okay, so you can group your tests into a particular group, and then while running your TestNG, you can specify that particular group. Okay, so groups are specified in TestNG.xml under the test or suit tag. Okay, so you can basically call that group so that that group will only get executed. Okay, so this is TestNG.xml. I need to correct this. Okay, then the group specified in the suit tag will only apply to all the test tags within that particular suit. Okay, so if you are mentioning any groups inside the suit tag, it will apply to all the test tags. Okay, by default. Now you can also include groups as well as you can also exclude groups. Okay, so if you include the groups, only those groups will get executed. If you mention some groups as excluded, so those groups won't be run. Okay, inside your tests. Now, this is how your annotation looks like. So inside the test annotation, you have to pass groups. Okay, and then inside curly braces, you can mention any number of groups for your test. Okay, if you mention just one group, it will be only part of that particular group. If you mention multiple groups, so all the groups will have this particular test method. Okay, so this will be on top of the test method. So this is how a group looks like. And then you need to specify that you want to include the smoke group in the testng.xml so that when you run your testng XML file, only the smoke tests will be run. Okay, only the test methods which are part of the smoke test group, those only will be run. So this is how you can filter out test cases from your execution, or you can execute if you want to execute only a particular set of test cases, you can do it using groups. Okay, so here now here we can specify groups. Okay, so you need to first have this brackets, and then you need to specify groups. Okay, and here I can say this is smoke. Okay, so my login test method belongs to the smoke group, smoke tests group, right? So similarly, you can mention groups for all the other test methods which you have in your test scripts. Okay, so once you go here, so either you can specify it after the suit, or you can also specify it after the test. Okay, so you can mention groups here, and then you can say run. There will be include and exclude, right? So you can say include, and here you can say run only smoke tests. Okay. Similarly, you can have exclude as well, right? So I can say run smoke test, but then I mean include the smoke test, but also exclude the regression tests. So this way you can only run the smoke test. You can also have method groups, right? So inside class, you can define methods, and then you can include and exclude even those. But better to do it at the test level rather than at the class level, I would say. Okay, so yeah, so this was about groups, how you can group your TestNG methods.